My brother broke my $4,800 wheelchair and said it was a funny joke, so I sued him. Hey, Reddit. I'm Jacob, 32 years old, and I've been paralyzed from the waist down since I was 20. Long story short, there was a car accident. Ice on the road, a careless driver, and my life changed in an instant. I've adjusted pretty well over the years, though. My $4,800 electric wheelchair is my lifeline. Without it, I'd be stranded, and to be honest, it's a pretty awesome piece of equipment. It's not just mobility, it's freedom. This past weekend, my mom threw a big family gathering at her house. I wasn't exactly thrilled about going, mostly because these events usually end up as a circus of kids running around, people talking over each other, and David, the 35-year-old self-proclaimed comedian of the family, pulling one of his classic pranks. David has been a thorn in my side since childhood, always playing the fool, always going a step too far. Anyway, my girlfriend, Olivia, insisted we go. She's all about family time, even when it's my family. So, we went. Things were okay at first, loud, chaotic, but manageable. My mom had gone out of her way to make sure I was comfortable, setting up a spot for me in the corner of the living room where I wouldn't get bumped by the kids zooming around like caffeinated squirrels. I parked my chair there and settled in, chatting with my sister Ellie and her husband, Noah. Then came David. He swaggered in late, as usual, wearing that stupid grin that always made me uneasy. He tossed a few jokes around, grabbed a beer, and started making his rounds. Every time he came near me, I could feel his eyes on the wheelchair. He's never been able to leave it alone, always asking questions like, how fast does it go? Or can it pop wheelies? I ignored him, hoping he'd get bored and move on. But David doesn't get bored. He gets ideas. It happened during one of those lulls in the party when everyone was distracted. Kids screaming outside, adults immersed in conversations. I'd gone to the bathroom, leaving my chair parked near the kitchen. I wasn't gone more than 5 minutes, but when I came back, I heard laughter. Not the usual chatter or giggles. This was the kind of laughter that meant David was up to something. My heart sank as I rounded the corner and saw him sitting in my chair. He wasn't just sitting. He was trying to do a spin. David, what the hell are you doing? I yelled, my voice cracking from anger and panic. Oh, relax, Jake. I'm just testing it out, he said, flashing that smirk that I've grown to hate. It's not a toy. I snapped. Get out of it. But he didn't stop. Instead, he doubled down, leaning forward like he was about to race. What's the top speed on this thing, huh? 10 miles an hour? I tried to reach for the armrest, but before I could stop him, he slammed the joystick forward. The chair lurched, and David lost control. The room seemed to move in slow motion as he tried to pull a sharp turn, and the chair tipped. It crashed onto its side, slamming into the kitchen island. I heard a sickening crunch as the motor whined and the front wheel bent. Shit. David scrambled to his feet, looking half amused, half shocked. I didn't think it would tip like that. I just stared at the wreckage. My wheelchair, my $4,800 lifeline, was lying there, busted. My hands were shaking as I tried to process what had just happened. The laughter stopped. Conversations around the house faded as people noticed the commotion. My mom rushed over, her face pale. What happened? David happened. I shouted, my voice louder than I'd ever heard it. He destroyed my wheelchair. It was an accident. David protested, his tone defensive. I didn't mean to. Accident. I cut him off. You were messing with something that wasn't yours. You knew better, but you did it anyway. That's not an accident. That's being a reckless asshole. The room was dead silent. Everyone was staring at us, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. My mom tried to defuse the situation, but I wasn't having it. This wasn't just some minor inconvenience. My entire life revolves around that chair. Without it, I'm stuck. Do you have any idea how expensive that is? I demanded. Do you know how long it takes to get a new one? David looked at the floor, mumbling something about it being just a chair. That was it. That was the moment I snapped. It's not just a chair. It's my freedom. You can walk out of here and go about your life like nothing happened. I can't. He didn't have an answer. Nobody did. My mom suggested we call a repair shop, But I knew it wasn't that simple. The damage wasn't cosmetic. The motor was fried, the wheel was bent, and the entire frame was out of alignment. This wasn't a quick fix. Olivia stepped in, her voice calm but firm. David, you need to pay for this. Pay for it. He looked genuinely shocked, as if the idea had never occurred to him. Yes, pay for it, she said. Jacob can't wait months for insurance to sort this out. He needs his chair now. David muttered something about not having that kind of money. Typical. He'd always been irresponsible, living paycheck to paycheck, blowing his money on stupid gadgets and weekends in Vegas. The idea of him coughing up $4,800 was laughable, but Olivia wasn't backing down. Then you figure it out, she said. Borrow it, sell something, I don't care. But you broke it, so you fix it. My mom tried to smooth things over, offering to cover part of the cost, but I wasn't interested in compromise. This wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, or the lack of it. David had treated my wheelchair like a toy, like my mobility was some kind of joke, and now I was paying the price. By the time the party ended, I was exhausted, emotionally, physically, mentally. Olivia and I left early, and the ride home was quiet. I couldn't stop replaying the incident in my head, the sound of the crash, the look on David's face, the realization that my independence had been taken from me in an instant. Now I'm sitting here in my backup manual wheelchair, typing this out and wondering what to do next. David hasn't called, hasn't apologized, hasn't offered to help. Part of me wants to take him to court, but that feels like dragging the family into an even bigger mess. What would you do, Reddit? How do you handle someone who refuses to take responsibility for their actions, especially when those actions have such a huge impact on your life? After the party ended, I thought David might take some time to reflect and realize just how serious this was. Maybe he'd call, apologize, and offer to help pay for the repairs. Instead, what I got was a text. A text. Hey man, sorry about what happened. Didn't mean to mess up your chair. Just a joke gone wrong. Hope there's no hard feelings. I stared at my phone in disbelief. No hard feelings? Was he serious? My wheelchair was destroyed. My independence, my mobility, all of it was tied to that chair. And here he was, brushing it off as a joke gone wrong. I showed Olivia the text, and she was furious. This isn't an apology. He's not taking responsibility at all, she said. She was right. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This wasn't just about the money. It was about principle. David needed to understand that his actions had consequences. The next day, I called him. David, we need to talk about the wheelchair. Look, I already said I'm sorry, he said, his tone defensive. Saying sorry isn't enough. That chair cost nearly $5,000, and I can't afford to replace it. You need to pay for the repairs or a new one. Jacob, come on. It was a joke. I didn't mean to break it. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? A big deal? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. David, you destroyed the one thing that allows me to live my life. This isn't a prank. It's my mobility. My freedom. You have to take responsibility. I can't afford that kind of money, he said flatly. And honestly, I think you're overreacting. It's just a chair. That was it. That phrase, just a chair, set something off in me. It's not just a chair. Do you have any idea what it's like to be stuck in one place, completely dependent on others, because someone decided to be reckless? If you can't afford to pay for it, figure it out. Sell something. Get a loan. But you will pay for this, David. The call ended with him muttering something about needing to think it over, but I knew he wasn't going to step up willingly. That weekend, the family drama exploded. My mom, who had always been the peacemaker, decided to host another gathering to talk things out. I didn't want to go. I was still furious, and I knew David would try to weasel his way out of taking responsibility. But Olivia insisted we go. If you don't stand up for yourself, he'll think he can get away with it, she said. When we arrived, the tension was palpable. David was sitting in the corner, looking smug and unbothered. My mom was wringing her hands, clearly stressed, while my dad sat silently, his face a mask of disappointment. My sister Ellie and her husband Noah were there too, along with my uncle Kevin and his wife Linda. As soon as I walked in, David spoke up. Jake, man, let's just put this behind us. I already apologized, didn't I? You call that an apology? I shot back. You haven't taken any responsibility for what you did. I didn't do it on purpose, he said, raising his voice. It was a joke. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Ellie jumped in. David, you broke his wheelchair. You can't just shrug this off like it's nothing. Come on, Ellie, David said. You know Jacob has a temper. He's always looking for a reason to get mad at me. That comment made my blood boil. This isn't about my temper, David. It's about you being reckless and irresponsible. Uncle Kevin chimed in, siding with David. Look, Jacob, accidents happen. David said he's sorry. Do you really want to drag the whole family into a fight over this? A fight, I said, my voice trembling with anger. This isn't a fight. This is about accountability. David destroyed something that's vital to my life. He can't just walk away from this. Linda, Uncle Kevin's wife, shook her head. I think you're being a bit harsh, Jacob. It's not like he did it on purpose. Not on purpose? He climbed into my chair, knowing it wasn't his, and tried to pull a stunt with it. How is that not intentional? The room was divided. Ellie and Noah were firmly on my side, while Uncle Kevin and Linda were defending David. My mom tried to play mediator, but it was clear she didn't know what to do. Then my dad spoke up for the first time. David, he said, his voice calm but firm. You need to make this right. This isn't about the money. It's about doing what's right. You broke it, you fix it. David scoffed. I told you, I don't have that kind of money. Then figure it out, my dad said. Because if you don't, Jacob has every right to take this to court. The word court seemed to hit David like a slap in the face. You're not serious, he said, looking around for support. But my dad didn't back down. Dead serious. This isn't a joke, David. It's time to grow up and take responsibility. David's face turned red. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. I'll see what I can do. The rest of the evening was tense and uncomfortable. I left early, feeling drained and frustrated. Over the next few days, the family drama escalated. Uncle Kevin called me, accusing me of tearing the family apart over a stupid chair. Linda sent me a passive-aggressive text about how families should stick together, not sue each other. Meanwhile, Ellie and Noah were incredibly supportive. Ellie even offered to lend me money to get the repairs started, but I refused. This wasn't about money. It was about David taking responsibility. And David? He went radio silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. I started looking into legal options. If David wasn't going to step up, I had no choice but to pursue a small claims case. I hated the idea of dragging the family through a legal battle, but what other option did I have? The whole situation has left me feeling angry, hurt, and completely exhausted. I've spent years dealing with the challenges of being paralyzed, and I've worked hard to build a life of independence. For David to dismiss all of that as just a joke feels like a slap in the face. What would you do, Reddit? How do you handle a family member who refuses to take responsibility for their actions, especially when it's something as serious as this? I'm at my wit's end, and I don't know how to move forward without completely destroying what's left of my family relationships. When David refused to take responsibility for the wheelchair, I realized I had no choice but to take him to court. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. Suing a family member is messy, and I knew it would create even more tension. But what other option did I have? My independence had been stolen from me, and David was acting as if it was no big deal. If he wouldn't do the right thing willingly, I'd have to force him to. The first step was gathering evidence. Olivia was my rock through all of this. She helped me take detailed photos of the damaged wheelchair, capturing every angle. The bent wheel, the cracked frame, the busted motor. We also got repair estimates from 3 different shops, all of which confirmed that the damage was beyond repair and that a new chair would cost roughly $4,800. The text messages from David admitting he was just joking became key pieces of evidence. I printed out every exchange we'd had since the incident, highlighting the parts where he acknowledged he'd been messing around. It wasn't an outright confession, but it was enough to show that he wasn't denying his actions. When I told my family about the lawsuit, reactions were predictably mixed. Ellie and Noah were supportive, as always. Ellie even offered to testify on my behalf, saying she'd seen how David had been reckless and dismissive. My mom, on the other hand, begged me to reconsider. "Do you really want to drag this into court?" she asked. "Can't we handle this as a family?" "We tried that," I said. "David won't listen. He thinks this is all a joke. He needs to understand that his actions have consequences." Uncle Kevin and Linda were furious. They accused me of tearing the family apart and called me vindictive. I didn't care. At this point, it wasn't about keeping the peace. It was about standing up for myself. The court date came faster than I expected. I remember feeling a mix of nerves and determination as Olivia and I walked into the small claims courtroom. It wasn't a grand, dramatic setting. Just a plain room with a judge, a clerk, and a few rows of chairs. But to me, it felt monumental. David showed up with Uncle Kevin by his side. No lawyer, no real preparation. Just David, looking smug and confident, as if this whole thing was going to blow over. That attitude made my blood boil. He didn't even seem to take the situation seriously. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, called the case and asked me to present my side. I started by explaining the incident in detail, how David had climbed into my wheelchair without permission, tried to pull a stunt, and ended up destroying it. I showed the photos of the damage, passed around the repair estimates, and handed over copies of the text messages. The judge reviewed everything carefully, nodding as she flipped through the documents. "Mr. Jacobs," she said, addressing David, "do you dispute any of this?" David smirked. "Look, Your Honor, it was a joke. I didn't mean to break anything. Jacobs just being dramatic." "Dramatic?" I couldn't keep quiet. "You destroyed the one thing that gives me independence, and you think I'm being dramatic?" The judge held up her hand to silence me. "Mr. Jacobs, this is not the time for arguments. I'll ask again. Do you dispute that you were using the wheelchair when it was damaged?" "Well, no," David admitted, "but I didn't do it on purpose. It's not like I was trying to break it." "That may be true," the judge said, "but intention isn't the issue here. The issue is negligence. You used something that didn't belong to you, and as a result, it was damaged. The plaintiff is seeking $4,800 to replace the wheelchair. Do you have any evidence to counter this claim?" David looked flustered. "I mean, I don't have that kind of money. And besides, it's just a chair. He could probably get it fixed for less than that." I could see the judge's patience wearing thin. "Mr. Jacobs, the repair estimates provided by the plaintiff clearly state that the damage is beyond repair. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?" David mumbled something about how he hadn't gotten an estimate himself. The judge shook her head. "If you wanted to present evidence, you should have done so before today. As it stands, the plaintiff has provided ample documentation to support his claim." Uncle Kevin tried to interject, saying something about family loyalty, but the judge shut him down immediately. "This is a court of law, not a family mediation. Please refrain from speaking unless you're called upon." When it was my turn to speak again, I explained how the damage to the wheelchair had affected my daily life. I described the challenges of using my manual wheelchair, the strain it put on my arms, and the limitations it imposed on my ability to work and go about my routine. "This isn't about revenge," I said. "It's about getting my life back." The judge nodded, clearly sympathetic. "Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. I believe I've heard enough." She turned to David one last time. "Mr. Jacobs, is there anything else you'd like to add?" David just shrugged. "I already said I'm sorry. What more does he want?" The judge didn't look impressed. "What he wants, Mr. Jacobs, is compensation for the damage you caused. And based on the evidence presented, I find in favor of the plaintiff. You are ordered to pay $4,800 to Mr. Jacobson to cover the cost of a new wheelchair. Payment is to be made within 30 days. Hearing those words was like a weight lifting off my shoulders. Justice. Finally. David, on the other hand, looked like he'd just been punched in the gut. 30 days, he sputtered. "I can't come up with that kind of money in 30 days. "That's not my problem," the judge said firmly. "You may leave." As we left the courtroom, David tried to corner me in the hallway. "Jacob, come on, man. You're really going to make me pay all of that?" "You heard the judge," I said. "This is on you." Uncle Kevin muttered something about how I'd ruined Christmas and stormed off with David in tow. Olivia hugged me tightly, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Now, I'm just waiting to see if David actually pays up or if I'll have to take further steps to enforce the judgment. Either way, I'm not backing down. This was never about money. It was about standing up for myself and making sure David learned a lesson he wouldn't forget. When the court ruled in my favor and ordered David to pay $4,800 within 30 days, I felt a momentary sense of relief. Finally, it felt like justice had been served. But as I soon discovered, the fight was far from over. The first week after the ruling, I didn't hear anything from David. No apology, no update on how he planned to make the payment, nothing. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was figuring out how to gather the money. Maybe he was embarrassed and didn't know how to approach me. But as the days turned into weeks, it became clear that David wasn't planning to pay me anytime soon. I decided to reach out, just to see where things stood. I sent him a simple text, "Hey, David. Just checking in. Have you made any progress on the payment?" His reply came hours later and was as frustrating as I'd expected. "Still working on it." Chill out, man. Chill out? I'd been more than patient. The court had given him 30 days, and he was treating it like a casual suggestion rather than a legal requirement. Olivia, ever my voice of reason, told me to wait until the 30 days were up before taking further action. "He's probably just stalling because he doesn't want to admit he's struggling," she said. "Let's see what happens." By the time the 30-day deadline came and went, I still hadn't received a dime. That was the last straw. I contacted a lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Amanda Davis, who specialized in enforcing small claims judgments. Amanda listened carefully as I explained the situation, her expression growing increasingly stern. "So, he's had 30 days and hasn't made any payments or contacted you with a plan?" she asked. "Not a single payment," I said. "And he acts like I'm the one being unreasonable." Amanda shook her head. "Unfortunately, this isn't uncommon. Some people think they can ignore court orders and hope the problem goes away. But don't worry, we have options. The most effective route is wage garnishment. We'll file the necessary paperwork and make sure his employer deducts the payments directly from his paycheck." It felt like a weight had been lifted. Finally, someone was taking this seriously. Amanda assured me that the process would take a few weeks, but that it was a guaranteed way to get the money I was owed. When David received notice of the wage garnishment, all hell broke loose. My phone blew up with calls and texts, each more ridiculous than the last. "Are you kidding me, Jacob? You're garnishing my wages? Do you know how hard it is to live off my paycheck as it is? I can't believe you do this to family. You're heartless. You're ruining my life over a stupid chair." I ignored most of his messages, forwarding the worst ones to Amanda. She advised me not to engage directly with him and to let the legal process play out. But David wasn't content to just harass me privately. He took the fight to social media. I woke up one morning to find my phone buzzing with notifications. Friends and family members were tagging me in posts and messaging me about something David had written. When I opened Facebook, I saw it. A long, dramatic post from David, painting himself as the victim. Sometimes the people you think you can trust turn out to be the ones who hurt you the most. I made a mistake, and now my own cousin is trying to destroy me. I'm struggling to make ends meet, and he's out here garnishing my wages over a joke gone wrong. Family is supposed to forgive, not punish. But I guess not everyone believes in second chances. "Thanks for ruining my life, Jacob." The comments were a mixed bag. Some people offered sympathy, saying things like, "Hang in there, David. You'll get through this." Others, like my sister Ellie, weren't having it. "Let's be clear," she wrote. "David destroyed Jacob's wheelchair, the one thing he relies on to live independently, and refused to take responsibility. This isn't about forgiveness. It's about accountability. Maybe if you'd paid what you owed, you wouldn't be in this mess." Ellie's comments sparked a firestorm. Uncle Kevin and Linda jumped in, accusing her of stirring the pot and picking sides. Other family members weighed in too, some defending David, others siding with me. It was chaos. Meanwhile, David doubled down on his victim narrative. He started posting daily updates, detailing how unfair it was that his wages were being garnished and how he was struggling to keep a roof over his head. He even shared a photo of an eviction notice he'd supposedly received, claiming that I was the reason he might end up homeless. At first, I tried to ignore it, but when I started getting messages from extended family members, people I hadn't spoken to in years, telling me to stop ruining David's life, I knew I had to address it. I posted my own statement, keeping it short and to the point. David destroyed my $4,800 electric wheelchair, which is essential to my independence and daily life. He refused to take responsibility, leaving me no choice but to pursue legal action. The court ruled in my favor, and he has had ample time to pay what he owes. This situation is entirely of his own making. I'm not ruining his life. He's facing the consequences of his actions. The post didn't stop the drama, but it did help clarify things for the people who were genuinely confused. Still, the damage to the family was undeniable. My mom called me in tears one night, begging me to make peace with David. "I just want things to go back to normal," she said. "This fighting is tearing the family apart." "I didn't start this, Mom," I said. "David did. And if he wants things to go back to normal, he knows what he needs to do." Ellie and Noah remained firmly in my corner, but the tension with Uncle Kevin and Linda only grew. They stopped inviting Olivia and me to family events, and at one point, Linda even blocked me on social media. It was exhausting. Through it all, Olivia was my rock. She reminded me why I was fighting in the first place. Not just for the money, but for my dignity. "You've worked so hard to build an independent life," she said. "Don't let David make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself." It took months, but the wage garnishment finally paid off. The money trickled in slowly, bit by bit, until I'd received the full $4,800. When the final payment hit my account, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. I was glad the ordeal was over, but the damage to my family felt irreparable. David, of course, never admitted fault or apologized. To this day, he continues to portray himself as the victim, telling anyone who will listen that I ruined his life. As for the rest of the family, some relationships have healed, while others remain strained. Months after the court battle and wage garnishment, the family was still a fractured mess. It felt like every interaction was tainted by the fallout between David and me. My mom, who hated seeing the family divided, came up with the idea of hosting a mediation session. Her hope was that, with everyone sitting down together, we could heal the wounds and move forward. I was skeptical. What's the point if David still refuses to take responsibility? I asked her during one of our phone calls. "He's paid most of the money now, hasn't he?" she said, trying to sound hopeful. "Maybe this is a chance for him to make amends." "He hasn't apologized, Mom," I reminded her. "Paying because the court forced him to isn't the same as owning up to what he did." Despite my reservations, Olivia convinced me to give it a try. "You've got nothing to lose," she said. "And who knows? Maybe he'll surprise you." So, on a chilly Saturday afternoon, Olivia and I drove to my mom's house for the mediation. My sister Ellie and her husband Noah were already there when we arrived, along with Uncle Kevin, Linda, and, of course, David. The air was thick with tension as we all sat down in the living room. My mom had even invited a family friend, Reverend Peter, to act as a neutral facilitator. He was a kind man in his 60s, with a calm demeanor that made him a natural peacemaker. Reverend Peter started by setting the ground rules. "We're here to listen to each other and work toward understanding," he said. "This isn't about assigning blame or winning arguments. It's about moving forward as a family." I appreciated the sentiment, but as soon as David started talking, I knew this wasn't going to go well. He began by rehashing his usual excuses. How he didn't mean to break the wheelchair, how I blew things out of proportion, and how he'd already paid most of the money. "So what more do you want?" "What I want," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "is for you to acknowledge what you did and show some genuine remorse. This isn't just about money, David. It's about respect." "Respect?" he scoffed. "I've already paid more than enough respect in court. You got your money, didn't you?" I could feel my blood boiling, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You didn't give me anything, David. The court garnished your wages because you refused to pay voluntarily. And you still haven't apologized. Linda jumped in, as she always did, to defend him. Jacob, you're being unreasonable. David's been through a lot too, you know? He's struggling to make ends meet, and you're sitting here acting like he hasn't suffered. Suffered? Ellie snapped. Are you kidding me? Jacob's the one who had his wheelchair destroyed. He's the one who had to fight in court just to get what he was owed. And you're worried about David's feelings? The argument escalated from there. Uncle Kevin accused Ellie of being too harsh. Noah called out Kevin for enabling David's behavior. And my mom sat in the middle, wringing her hands and looking overwhelmed. Reverend Peter tried to steer the conversation back on track, but it was clear that mediation wasn't working. Finally, David stood up and said, "You know what? I'm done. If Jacob wants to hold a grudge forever, that's his problem. I'm not wasting any more time on this." With that, he stormed out of the room. Uncle Kevin and Linda followed him, muttering about how this was a waste of time. I stayed a little longer to reassure my mom and thank Reverend Peter for trying, but deep down, I knew this was the end of any hope for reconciliation, for now, at least. After that day, I decided to distance myself from David and anyone who supported his behavior. I stopped attending family gatherings where I knew he'd be present and focused on rebuilding my own life. Olivia and I spent more time with Ellie and Noah, who had always been in my corner, and I poured my energy into work and hobbies that brought me joy. For a while, it seemed like David and I would never speak again. But then, a few months later, something unexpected happened. It started with a text. I was sitting at home, scrolling through my phone, when a message popped up from David. "Hey, Jacob, can we talk?" I stared at the screen, unsure of what to make of it. Part of me wanted to ignore him, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" I replied. He called me almost immediately. "Jacob, I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I know I've been a jerk, and I've made things worse instead of better. I didn't know how to handle everything, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. This was the first time he'd shown anything resembling genuine remorse. "Why now?" I asked cautiously. "I've been thinking about everything," he said. "The court, the family, the way I acted at the mediation. I realize I've been selfish and I've hurt you. I don't want things to be like this anymore." It wasn't an instant fix, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, David made a real effort to repair our relationship. He reached out regularly to check in, apologized again, this time in person, and even started paying off the remaining balance of the court-ordered debt. He explained that he'd picked up a second job to make the payments faster, and true to his word, the money started coming in consistently. Rebuilding trust wasn't easy, and I was careful not to let my guard down too quickly. But as time went on, I began to see that David's apology was sincere. He stopped making excuses, took full responsibility for his actions, and even reached out to the rest of the family to try to mend fences. By the time the debt was fully paid off, our relationship was in a much better place. We weren't best friends or anything, but we'd found a way to coexist without the resentment and anger that had defined the past year. After everything that happened with David and the court, I felt like I had a new perspective on life. For months, I'd been bogged down by the stress of legal battles, family arguments, and lingering resentment. When the final payment from David came through, I realized I had a chance to start fresh. And that started with upgrading my wheelchair. The old one had been a good chair, but technology had advanced so much since I bought it. I decided to look for something state-of-the-art, something that could give me not just mobility but a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. After researching for weeks and visiting several mobility equipment providers, I found the perfect chair, a sleek, $6,500 model with all the bells and whistles. This wheelchair wasn't just functional, it was revolutionary. It had advanced suspension for rough terrain, a reclining feature for long rides, and even a built-in navigation system. The moment I tried it out, I knew it was worth every penny. Rolling through the showroom, I felt like I was flying. For the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely excited about the future. The chair arrived 2 weeks later, and Olivia helped me get it set up. "This thing is amazing," she said, grinning as she watched me test the controls. "It's like a luxury car on wheels." She wasn't wrong. The first time I took it out for a spin around the neighborhood, I felt an incredible sense of freedom. I didn't have to worry about uneven sidewalks or steep inclines anymore. This chair could handle it all. It was more than just a tool, it was a game changer. With my newfound mobility, I started to focus on things I'd always wanted to do but had put off for one reason or another. First on the list was travel. Olivia and I planned a trip to Colorado to visit Rocky Mountain National Park. The thought of tackling those trails in my old wheelchair would have been daunting, but with my new chair, I was confident I could handle it. The trip was unforgettable. We spent days exploring the park, taking in breathtaking views of snow-capped peaks and lush valleys. Olivia, ever the adventurer, even convinced me to try a short trail that was marked as accessible but challenging. My chair handled it beautifully, and the sense of accomplishment I felt at the end of the hike was indescribable. But travel wasn't the only thing I threw myself into. I'd always had a passion for photography, something I dabbled in during college but never fully pursued. With my new chair, I felt like I could finally explore the world in ways I hadn't before. I invested in a high-quality camera and started taking weekend trips to local parks and landmarks, capturing everything from stunning sunsets to candid street scenes. Photography gave me a creative outlet and a way to see the world through a different lens, literally and figuratively. Volunteering also became a big part of my life. After everything I'd been through, I wanted to give back to the community that had supported me during the toughest times. I started volunteering at a local organization that provided resources for people with disabilities. Whether it was helping someone navigate the process of acquiring mobility equipment or just lending an empathetic ear, I found the work incredibly fulfilling. Of course, not everything was perfect. My relationships with certain family members remained strained. Uncle Kevin and Linda had never forgiven me for taking David to court, and they made no secret of their resentment. Even at family gatherings, they kept their distance, and their conversations with me were polite but cold. It hurt, but I'd come to accept that not everyone would see things from my perspective. David, on the other hand, had made genuine efforts to mend our relationship. While we weren't exactly close, he'd shown consistent remorse and had even reached out a few times to check on me. I appreciated his efforts, but the damage to our relationship would take time to heal. Ellie and Noah, as always, were my biggest supporters. They cheered me on as I tackled new adventures and even joined me on some of my photography outings. One weekend, the three of us drove out to the coast to photograph a lighthouse at sunrise. Standing there with my camera, watching the golden light spill across the waves, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. My mom, ever the optimist, still held out hope that the family would one day fully reconcile. "Time heals all wounds," she said during one of our conversations. "You've been through so much, Jacob, but I think this family will find its way back together." I wanted to believe her, but I knew some wounds ran deeper than others. For now, I was content focusing on the things that brought me joy. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and I was determined to make the most of it. One of the most meaningful moments came when I was invited to exhibit my photography at a local gallery. The theme was resilience, and it felt like the perfect fit. I selected a series of photos that captured the beauty and strength I'd found in the world around me. Rolling hills, towering trees, bustling city streets. At the opening night, as I wheeled around the gallery and listened to people's reactions to my work, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was what I'd been working toward. A life of purpose and creativity, unshackled by the limitations others had tried to impose on me. As I look back on everything that's happened, I can't help but feel a mix of emotions. The journey hasn't been easy, and there are scars, both physical and emotional, that will never fully heal. But I've also grown in ways I never thought possible. I've learned to stand up for myself, to embrace new challenges, and to find joy in the small moments that make life worth living. My new wheelchair is more than just a piece of equipment. It's a symbol of everything I've fought for: independence, freedom, and the ability to live life on my own terms. And while some relationships may never be the same, I've found strength in the people who truly matter, the ones who've stood by me through it all. Life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright unfair. But it's also beautiful, full of opportunities to grow and create and connect. And as I roll forward into the next chapter, I'm ready to embrace whatever comes my way.